Hey, welcome to BenUp, where I use my indigenous Igorot roots, adopted American roots, and Catholic roots to navigate through life's messy waters. Have you ever heard of a campaign or a movement called the Walkaway Campaign? Only till about 3 weeks ago did I discover it. I discovered it on Facebook. There was a post that caught my attention. It was a guy's picture and his testimony about him leaving what I call the Democrat Party. Democrat. But the post itself was captivating. It caught my attention so much that I decided to look up the group and follow up more posts. Now, as I kept reading more and more testimonies, I discovered that there's a lot of people, thousands of people part of this group, and they're all from different walks of life. Not only that, there's all different. There's white people, there's black people, there's Asians, there's Native Americans, and the religions. There's all different religions and even atheists in there. But what impressed me and captivated me the most was that they all used reason. They all came to the point where they allowed reason, they allowed truth to enter their consciousness, their thinking. They discovered that what they've been doing politically in their life by hanging on and being part of the Democrat Party was not the right decision. And so after discovering that, after coming to this enlightenment, they walked away, hence the name Walkaway Campaign. It didn't take me long to tell myself, hey, I want to be part of this group. This is a good group. Eventually I joined. So in this video, I want to talk about why Walkaway Campaign resonates with me, because it really resonates with me. Why? Because there's been so many examples in my life of walk away, of walking away from something, of discovering something, of coming to truth and realizing that truth and using our God-given decision making to walk away. So I want to briefly cover these examples with you. I want to start with my parents, my indigenous Igorot parents. They're both indigenous Igorots. Now, a lot of you probably don't know what indigenous Igorot is. Well, Igorots in short are the indigenous people in the Philippines, in the mountains, in the Cordillera Mountains of Luzon, on the island of Luzon. Now, unlike the rest of Luzon and most of the Philippines, we were never colonized by Spain. Okay, we maintain our indigenous culture, our language, our cultures, our practices, our religions, everything. During that whole 300 years of Spanish occupation when the Philippines was part of Spain. So we were never colonized. Now, the first example I want to talk about is my mother. My mother was born a pagan. Her father, my grandfather, what we call in the Philippines, my lolo, was a pagan priest, a pagan shaman. It was in her childhood that she discovered what Christianity was about through the Catholic Belgian sisters. And when she encountered that as an adolescent, she decided, knowing everything that she was raised in by what her father had taught her about our culture, about our gods, about our practices, she decided, because of reason, not only that, but reason that was enlightened by faith, but she decided to walk away from paganism. And because of her father, eventually, shortly before he died, also did the same. He walked away from his pagan practices and converted to Christianity, became a Catholic. The second example I want to talk about is my father. Now, this is relating to his education. See, back in the Philippines, we Igorots have historically been considered inferior by the eyes of the other Filipinos, the lowlanders, our lowlander brothers and sisters. There's been many stereotypes, false stereotypes, and even in the past and still even today, it's been taught in schools. Things like Us Igorots have tails, He could have easily got into what here in America is known as the victim mentality. Okay, he could have easily said, okay, hey, we're not treated as equals here. We're looked upon, frowned upon, and that's just how it is. Okay. Now realizing that, he says, no. I see these misconceptions. I see these prejudices. I see these things that are supposed to hold Igorots back, but no, he walked away. He walked away from all that, went to St. Louis University, and became the first Igorot valedictorian. I think his picture is still publicly displayed there at St. Louis University. Another example of my father is after he finished college and got his bachelor's degree, he went to work as a civil engineer in the Philippines. Now, as a civil engineer at that time, that was during the Marcos regime, President Marcos, who was he was more or less a dictator. He declared martial law, and there was just a whole history on that, bad history. But as a civil engineer, he started encountering political things, bribes. He saw things that were happening. He came to that realization that the Marcos regime was a bad regime. And what did he do? Yeah, packed his bags. We walked away. He walked away. Left the Philippines, left the Cordillera Mountains, and came over here to America. After immigrating here to America, my father went to work as a civil engineer. But it wasn't long till he realized that corporate America, his job, basically corporate America, was not for him, was not offering him the opportunities that he really wanted out of life. And so he wanted to pursue the American dream. Okay, he knew that if he had stayed as an employee working for somebody else, working the corporate America system, that he would just not be able to achieve the opportunities and the goals that he wanted in life for our family. Now, that's when he decided to walk away. He walked away from his job, from corporate America, became an entrepreneur. He first started in real estate, then got into healthcare, and then eventually to financial services. And another example of walk away is my mother. As much as she loved what she did as a nurse, and she had accomplished many things too. One particular thing she accomplished, a good thing, was at one of the hospitals she worked at the Heinz Veteran Hospital there. But as much as she loved what she was doing and caring for people and helping people, she decided, or she came to the realization, that our family would be better off if my father had a little bit more support with his entrepreneurial endeavors, and if she could be at home more with the family. And so she did that. She walked away. So those are the examples of walking away that I recall from my parents. In each example, they came to a point where they had to decide whether or not they should stay in a situation that is, or move on to a different situation that is better. And reason, in each case, reason allowed them to make that move from one to another, from worse to better, from bad to good. Okay, those are my parents. Now, politically, they weren't much into politics. In fact, I don't recall us talking about politics around the kitchen table, and that's when we really talked about stuff around the kitchen table as a family. I don't even know if they belonged to one party or stayed with one party, if they were Republican or Democrat or Libertarian. I don't know. Now, if I had to make an educated guess, all right, on how they voted, I would look at their values and the things that they believed. I will look at how they valued their freedom of religion so much, because they're just such devout Catholics. I will look at how they valued the sacredness of life, of how they valued the American dream, the entrepreneurship system, how they didn't like, I do remember them not liking how governments, how the government, they didn't want a whole lot of government interference. They wanted that freedom to build a business, to do things. They wanted a lot of things, and those values. If I took all those values, put it together, I can at least say this. If I don't know what they voted for, who they voted for, I can at least say they weren't Democrats. Okay, they did not vote for the Democrat candidates. I know for sure though that they liked President Reagan because he stood for a lot of the values that I just mentioned. They really liked that guy, so I could safely say they voted for him. But other than that, politics was not part of our life, of my life. Okay, sadly to say, after I became old enough to vote, I didn't vote. There were so many years, decades. Unfortunately, there were decades that went by that I just didn't care to vote. Politics was not my interest, okay? It wasn't until eventually that all the values, as I grew up and I got married, had kids, had a family, it wasn't until then that I started thinking more about what was going on in the world and seeing the values that my parents had inculcated into me, those values that I mentioned. And when I started seeing a shift in those values, either disappearing, going away, or being threatened, those values being threatened, then I started to wonder. Then I started to think, at least consciously think about politics. Okay, still I didn't really get into it, but I started thinking about it. And unfortunately, at that time, I had no difference between what left and right, liberal and conservative. I really didn't know. I just knew that the values that my parents had taught me, the values that I grew up believing, somehow were being challenged, threatened in the world I lived in. And it concerned me because I would look at my little kids and like, man, what's going to happen when they grow up? So as they grew up, as my kids grew up, and things really be deteriorating in our society, the values that I cherish and I grew up believing were really deteriorating, were really being challenged, were really being threatened, that I decided I needed to do something. And I needed to learn a little bit more about what was going on in the world. Okay. Fortunately, I came across a guy named Dennis Prager. Okay. Dennis Prager, I accidentally came across him on flipping channels on the radio. And it was a big, deep voice. And he started talking about things that made reasonable sense to me. It's like, man, that makes reasonable sense to me. And as I heard more and more, I said, what's the opposite of this is what's going on in the world today. And I would learn more about what the left is, or leftism is, as he calls it, the difference between leftism and conservatism. And a lot of the things that he would talk about just made sense. It resonated with what I grew up to believe, my values. Dennis Prager even made sense as far as religion-wise. Now, he's Jewish, okay, and I'm Catholic. But the things that he would say resonated with my Catholic faith even. I would just, listen to what he would say, and I would think about, wow, that even applies, the things that he's saying even applies to my Catholic faith. So my encounter with Dennis Prager and the things I was learning about conservatism is my first walkaway, because my first walkaway experience is walking away from ignorance, about sheer willful ignorance, about not caring. Okay, and there's a whole lot of people still in this world that still don't care. Okay, so I made the decision that I got to stop not caring. Things are going to deteriorate if I don't learn more, or do more, or somehow want to better myself. Then I need to do something. I need to walk away from this ignorance. Now, because of Dennis Prager and the things I'm learning about, that led me to another walkaway experience, and it has to do with my Catholic faith. All of a sudden, all these years, now I was born Catholic, okay? That we call that, if you're born Catholic, you're a cradle Catholic, okay? I was a cradle Catholic. We were all, my sisters and I went through Catholic education, Catholic schools. We were devout Catholics. Our family always went to mass on Sundays. And so, but I didn't realize a lot of things about my Catholic faith. I didn't realize that the Catholic faith that I grew up in, there was a whole bunch of stuff that 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 is being embraced in the Catholic Church that was talked against by Dennis Prager, and a lot of things having to do with leftism. Okay, there's a lot of things I was starting to discover, and eventually that led me to learning more about my Catholic faith. And those of you who have been watching me, you know, I connected to my Catholic roots about 5 years ago. I decided that, hey, prior to what we had this big change in the church, they call it Vatican II, this big Vatican II. Prior to that, there was a Catholic faith that seemed almost different. Today, I would call it, I like what our Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano would call that a parallel church. And I started to eventually realize that, oh my goodness, the Catholic faith I grew up in, if I think about the fruits that came out of that Vatican II, all the changes, all the liberal changes, all the things that kind of seeped into the church, I started to learn, boy, the Catholic Church has been infiltrated. And it didn't just start at Vatican II. It went all the way back to the mid 1800s or so. I learned that from Dr. Taylor Marshall, one of today's better theologians of the Catholic Church. So I started to discover, hey, man, what is going on in the Catholic Church? You know, a lot of Catholics are embracing stuff that go against the values that I grew up in. I mean, Catholics are embracing socialism these days. There's Catholics that embrace Marxism these days, which is a big no-no, which has always been an enemy of the church. They're embracing many things that align politically to the Democrats. And boy, did I have to scratch my head on that. I constantly still. But after I learned and discovered and allowed reason to play a part in this, I looked at the reason and I looked at facts. You know, in the secular world, in the political world, we talk about fake news. Well, there's fake Catholic too. You know, there's fake news like the CNNs and whatnot and all those media outfits. And then there's fake Catholics, like guess who? You know, the Catholic running for president right now, right? There's that going on. There's been an infiltration in the Catholic Church. Now that does not go to say I still accept Pope Francis as the Pope, but I pray for him on a daily basis because a lot of the things that he's doing does not align with traditional Catholicism. There's a lot of things that are happening in the church today that just basically had me come up to this other walkaway moment. And that walkaway moment was, hey, look, I can either go along with what all these modern Catholics are going, and nowadays we have different flavors of Catholicism. There's Catholics that will support things that go against church teachings. I made the decision that I'm not going to go with that anymore. I am not going to go along with all these new novelties in the Catholic Church, and I'm going to connect to my Catholic roots, the Catholic roots that has been around for centuries prior to this big change called Vatican II. So you take all these examples that came to mind. There's probably more, but those are the ones that really came to mind. You take these examples and you look at this Walkaway campaign, and I see this Walkaway campaign, and I say, man, I got to support this Walkaway campaign. Y'all need to support this Walkaway campaign. All y'all need to understand that reason has to take precedence here. we Catholics are supposed to live our Catholic faith based on reason, enlightened by faith. I won't talk about that second part, but that reason is why all y'all need to support this campaign, Walkaway Campaign. Okay, the liberals, the conservatives are coming together. Notice I didn't say leftists, because there are good liberals out there. There's a big I didn't know this before, but there's a difference between liberals and leftists. But they need to come together. Conservatives and liberals need to come together. All different faiths need to come together. All different people from different countries and cultures. We all need to come together and rally around reason, because leftism is not based on reason. Leftism is based on emotion, is based on feelings, is based on, like they have this utopia. They want to create a utopia, a perfect world. They're so feelings and emotional and emotion driven. Okay, but we need to come together and talk with people that we know, our friends, our circle of influences, the people that we work with, and we have to stop being silent. We have to at least try our best to support this whole thing of walking away. It's not just about politics. It's about values. For me, it's about values. And we need to protect our values. We need to protect the American way, which is being threatened. That's why Walkaway Campaign resonates with me. Share the Walkaway Campaign with as many people as you know, because there's only not a whole lot of time between now and November. I mean, there's still time. We can still keep America great. Hope you like this. If you did, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with other people. And as I tell my regular viewers, connect to your Catholic roots. If you're Catholic, make a Catholic difference. If not, make a difference. Engage in life's spiritual battles. Don't just man up. Don't just woman up. Be like one of our great saints, Saint Benedict, and BenUp. Until next time, God bless you.